So yeah, nice update. I think like the brightening of the floor helped a lot. In general, this feels to me, a little bit more vibrant. Um, and I like kind of the fixes you did with some of the textures. The So yeah, I mean, just A/Bing it, you can see like an immediate difference on like the top light helping. I feel like you fixed the issue with like the multiple shadows, and I think that's helping a lot. Um, it's just like the red going into the shadows is throwing in like some nice color work there. Um, yeah, it's a really really nice update. The one thing I was gonna say is that I think that the ground is looking maybe a little like too even. Like it's bright, and I tend to like I like that a lot. About it, like it feels like a nice street now instead. Um, but I think what's happening is maybe like the brightness is a little is like too much compared to like what's happening with some of the like the objects around it. Like it seems like a little artificial that it would be like this bright compared to some of the other objects. So I think like maybe like a slight like the slightest bit of darkening on just the ground might help you out a little bit, and we can test that out. So let's see like what we can do to get this ground. So it's like yeah, like maybe something around that level. It's like you still see like the big difference. It still feels a little brighter, but somehow it's like fitting in a little nicer. Like you could even go a little brighter than that, like there. But it's just like there seems to be just like the slightest bit too much heat on it. You know. Um, and then the other thing I was thinking is like I wonder if like you mixed a little bit of like I don't know what your sky colors are that's coming down with the top light, but I wonder if you mixed a little bit of like let's see. So if you put some if you added some like sorry, I'm trying to add some like blues and saturation to your midtones. That's too much. Just to see. I don't know. Yeah, I think you have a nice balance. It's kind of hard to like throw stuff in there. I was just thinking like I wonder if like when you see like sky hits in places, if you would see a little bit more like color from the sky. So if you're throwing like a top light here, you might on some of these like greens and maybe some of the metals if they're shiny. So like I see it here a little bit, like I see that blue. I almost feel like we can like throw a little bit more color in there just for fun. Like you see here where you see this like specular highlight, how it's like a little bit desaturated. I wonder if like right there on like these like shadowed areas, if you threw in a little bit of color, if you might like then play with the warms and the cools of like the sun hitting in certain places and getting you these nice warm bounces, and then like that cool sky coming down and giving you like a secondary color to hit. Um, but like I wouldn't go too far on it. I think like what you have here is good. But yeah, that was like saturated mids there. Maybe it's the shadows that we can add a little bit too. funny. It's like it's hard to add like blue when where there is none. Let's see if we do it another different way. Sorry. Alright. So right now it's just like a little bit of a gamma shift in the blues on the shadows. So you can kind of see it here where I'm pushing the green. But just like something like that, just to like push a little bit of that sky color in. And obviously you don't want it to, like whatever I'm doing here, you don't want any of that. But yeah, I'm just playing with like some of the colors a little bit. Sometimes I question like how much red, this is kind of a personal taste thing, like how much red is gonna bounce off of here. Generally, like with sun, that like bounce light will travel the most, so I think you kind of nailed it. And then in here, if I look at your original, because I'm doing stuff, I think like what ends up happening with this building here is that you're not getting a clear separation on edges, and it always helps to have like a good difference between like one edge and the other. So you should always be able to tell like where a corner is, not as a hard and fast rule, but I think it's just more pleasing, so I would either make this area, like the inside of this area, a little darker, maybe it's like a tighter tunnel or something, or just do something to get some shaping on that edge. But other than that, I mean, this is like really small notes, like, for doing like your first environmental like lighting, I think it's really good. Yeah, no major. Yeah, so here, look, here I'm just adding some blue to the ground, and I feel like right away it kind of feels more skylit. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's hard to add blue to something that's red and have it look right, through like in a comp where you're just gaining stuff. But when it's like white like this, you can actually see the difference right away. So like, there's the difference. And I just feel like, it'll be different because it's not a roto, but it just adds that little bit of extra color to contrast what's happening everywhere else. Yeah, so the notes to sum up is like, I think it just needs a little, like that fill coming down should be a little bit, like that sky top light should maybe be like a little bluer, unless you're considering it to be like a kind of cloudy day. And like that's a bit of sun. But if that's the case, if that was like your intent, I think like, you need to go to like a bit of a darker shade, but yeah, like the ground should be a little darker. I think you should see some level of difference between the sides of the building here. And then, yeah, I think that's good. I think it, like, you can kind of touch that up and then like move on from there. Things you can play with if you want to show again, is whenever you have brights over darks, you tend to see, like fog. So I would consider maybe like it's coming through here and you can see some like fog light in this like alleyway or something like that, and you might want to play with some level of like softness or diffusion depending on like, just on like the very bright, like the brightest areas, just to soften it up a little bit. Like the texture is so like hyper photoreal that I think it's adding like a bit of CG-ness to the look. So I think you can just kind of throw in a little softness either through the use of fog or through the use of diffusion, or like maybe a little bit of both, just to add a little bit of dirtiness to the scene. and I don't mean texture dirtiness, but like the clarity of the render. Yeah, it tends to always happen when you have like photographic textures like this, it's like someone like took a picture of something and then slapped it on an object. It can just feel really, really CG. So that might help you a little bit. But yeah, I mean, good work. I think you have some nice updates, and it's only going to get better from here. So I'd say you're kind of at like a 90% now, and I think you're at that like 10% where you're going to be doing a lot of minute adjustments here and there, and then you'll see that that 10% makes a big difference. It's like only 10% of the work, but it's kind of like 40% of the look. So, and I'm making up a bunch of percentages in my head right now. So, but yeah, keep going.
All right, thank you. For diffusion, do you mean like, does it mean like glow, or what do you mean by diffusion?
Yeah, it's like trying to find like the right word for it. Yeah, I guess glow to me personally is when I hear glow, I think of something that is emissive. So I wouldn't use glow as the word. I mean like something that's like bright and like throwing rays into like a hazy day, So to give you an idea, if I just like take a keyer based on luminance, and then I kind of limit it to just your brightest parts, something like this, right? And then I can take this I'll show you like my script in a second. Okay, so that's too much, and it's like the wrong color. It's still the wrong color. Okay, so here it is like super clean, right? And then, when you kind of like throw in a little bit of something, it just like softens some of the edges, so, and it just provides like a little bit extra like heat, to your scene. Sometimes when you do it this way, and here like it's just a simple thing where you're just taking your luminance, shuffling it to RGBA, or you're shuffling your alpha to RGB, and then blur and a grade. This blur can feel really artificial if it's like just a single blur. You might want to do like a bit of a compound blur where you so a compound blur, let's do this. So a single blur will get you kind of just like really hazy results like this, right? What you kind of want is like a blur that like happens multiple times into itself. It'll provide a little bit more richness to your blurs. So if you hit another blur now, and then you set this to like so this one's set to 14, right? And like what's good about it is that like doing it this way can sort of like keep some of your details in there instead of like blowing them all away. So every blur will kind of get a little bit like higher. You can see like, at this point I'm still keeping that like cross in there. And then a grade, and then now you're just getting like a more complex blur in there. And then like depending on how you do your luminance key, you can do something like that. Now you can take a glow node, so I know like, and slap that in there too, and do something like this. And you could change your tolerance. So like you can do that with a single node if you're looking to do something like that. I just, personally, I don't use glows this way. Sometimes I'll use them, but like I tend to use them only when something is emissive. I feel like that works a little better there. But you can get the tolerance right to like mix it in, and you'll see that it like works very similarly. Even this one, like the color is a little off. I think what's nice about the glow node is that it like kind of, and you can do this yourself, you can like actually mix in like your scene colors into this. So like where you have just this, you can then mix in your scene colors or your albedo, and then blur that and then add it on top. So that works too. But I think the glow kind of does that all in one. But yeah, so something like that, but just something that adds a little bit of like bleeding colors into other things, and like, haze in the air and stuff like that. Yeah, does that make sense? It's like sometimes I say diffusion, but that's like a term we used at Blue Sky a lot. But it's like, it's kind of glow, it's like, you're right, but I don't really use glow in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. So moving on, I'll go to, does anyone know how to say this name? Ubedu Laha? I'm sorry to butcher it, but you posted your work. You actually posted quite a bit of like real-time work. I think this is pretty cool. So I'm just kind of showing all the work you posted here. I did have some like thoughts on some of this, and most of the thoughts that I have are just based on your reference. The first thing I thought when I saw these was that, like, immediately I thought they're too dark. Like, you're losing an insane amount of detail on your frame, and if I like, because this is real time, I think about it like if I had it on my TV and I was playing like a video game here, I would be going into like the graphical options and seeing like where the brightness was or something like that, because I felt like the blacks were like extremely crushed. When I'm looking at like a lot of the artwork that you posted, it's like what sticks out to me is just how much color they're getting everywhere, even though it's nighttime. There's actually a fair amount of like brightness. And even here, if I look at like the closest point, like behind his head or something, it's still not like, it's not 000, so I would definitely think about that. Think about like adding some sort of like colored atmosphere, like some kind of ambient light that's in the set, whether it be like a moon or something like that. I know that like maybe you're thinking about it like, it's inside, and so it would be darker, and that's fine, but you don't have to go, you never have to be really literal with a lot of the work you're doing, and like people will actually buy that there's just like an ambient like blue fill or something like that here. All these other colors you have here, like the lighting, the way that stuff works, I think that's nice. If these are flickering, when you're seeing it in real time, that's really cool. But I just think you're losing so much detail. You're like losing so much of the frame, to darkness. And if that's the look you're going for, then don't listen to me. I'm happy for you to kind of go your own way, but I just think a lot of times your mids and your darks accentuate what's happening in your bright areas. You know, there are shots in film that are famous for their darks, but you know they're kind of few and far between. And like you'll see that whenever something's really dark, if you really look at like good reference for that, you'll always see that they did something to kind of lighten it a little bit because it helps. You know, like have you ever heard of the term that like, I know this is not super related, but you know when you're watching a movie like on a TV, having a little light in your room actually helps like bring out the like the richness and the like darks. So you don't want like your like room completely dark. Um, it's like the little bit of light you put will help people to make a big difference between this. But now it just kind of looks almost like unlit, you know, or like a dark cave or something like that. Um, so yeah, just think about like stuff like that. And even like this moon, um, I'm guessing it's like a, what is it called? Like a new moon when it's like dark. Um, but if it's coming through and casting this light, you know, I would expect like a brighter moon. You know, I'd expect some more like rays and stuff like that. In here, in this shot in particular, I would actually expect, so not this one, like in there, I would expect, like, I think you have it actually, some atmosphere there. And I think like this one needs that same like atmosphere. I think it will help. So I just think like most of what you've done is really nice. You know, it's like if this was a game, you know, I think it's kind of on the level of, you know, where it needs to be. But I think, you know, what's nice about this frame is like right back here, you get a sense of the room and the space, but on the edges, you lose it all. And then same thing here, it's like you're just losing a lot of that. So I would just add a little bit to it, and I think you're doing well. The other thing I was going to mention is, you know, I would get some reference of like, so, you know, you see this reference here, it's all rocky, and what they're doing here is they're real, like this light here should not really extend this far, you know, if you were doing a real light. But they're just doing it to accent this whole area, and it makes the shot, you know, like it completely is like why this shot works. But in your frames, you know, like this one here is lighting quite a lot of the light, but then other ones are doing like very little. So I would see about maybe even accentuating some like extra, you know, areas with these lights and see how that looks. It might help you, you know, like even this one, you could probably even extend it a little further on the ground, or like hit this one harder just to like see how that's going. But yeah, like in some places I feel like it's a little light, but yeah, when I see your references, I don't get that same sense of darkness that you have in yours. So I would try to like push that a little bit. And the other thing I was going to say is that it's kind of like an unfortunate thing that like a lot of your set is stone, because you're not getting any good like specular hits on the stone. And fire just looks really really nice with like a, you know, like a specky floor, you know, when you see that floor or like the wall, and it's kind of got its like nice hits, you know, of like specularity and reflection there. Like it just really works together. So one of the things I see in your scene a lot is that it's really dry, you know, it's like it's heavily diffuse. I don't know how you can solve that, but it's just, you know, it's just like something that comes with the territory. You're working in like these like ruins that are hundreds of years old. So you're not going to get that. So you're going to have to like work harder to make sure that the colors work and stuff like that. But otherwise, I think the stuff is really good, you know. It's just really the darkness and then accentuating some stuff a little more. So keep going with that. These shots I actually thought were really successful. They're feeling good. I do think this material on the beach is a little artificial looking. Yeah, these are cool. I like the atmosphere build up. I like the like hint of this like glow happening in here and kind of spilling on top. That's like a nice touch of like the bounce light coming up. This shot here, I think you can use a little bit more light, or like just maybe not more light, but more focus on this. I think it kind of disappears into the background. If I look at your luminance, like this stuff and the wall and then this stuff, it kind of acts as a way to like hide this thing. And I was looking at your reference, so let's go through your reference. And I just got the sense that like, you know, every time there was a building, you know, like it was the central focus of the piece, you know. Like even this one, it's like really far, so there's a lot of atmosphere, but they still kind of cut it out with this like really nice key. So I think all you need here is just a little bit of focus on here, like just brighten this up a tad and darken this like area a little bit. It'll just help pull focus to the really nice architecture that you have here. And I think what you can do is make like if you made these a little brighter, they would act as like visual markers pointing at this thing. So let's do like a little test here. I'm just gonna quickly so if you just kind of increase ugh. So if you just added the slightest bit to this guy, you know, suddenly he's coming forward quite a bit, you know, and I think it separates it from the back. This is not a lot. This is like, you know, 15 to 20% more, you know, than what you have. And then I think on these guys, if like, you know, right now they're red, you could make them into like a shade that is very different from the wall, you know. You could make them like blue or something like that, you know. And I think you'd throw in like some extra color into your scene. You could make them white, you know. You know, I don't want to change stuff, you know, like too much. I think it's working. I just think like maybe there's just something here that you can add to accentuate these a little bit. So yeah, you can even make the top of them a little brighter, as if they're getting hit by the same sun. You know, like I don't see much shaping on them as it is. So if you just like threw a little bit of extra brightness so they kicked off that background, I think that would help. Yeah, and then I'm trying to see. Like I know you're doing this in real time, so I'm trying to not to give you like, you know, like compy notes and stuff like that. I will say that judging from, let me see something real quick. Yeah, so judging from like your shadows, I might see about throwing like maybe a little bit of extra blue in here, but it's really up to you. The only reason I say that is because like your colors are really desaturated except for the water, and so it's telling me that you're not using like a tone mapper to like make all your blues like desaturated. You know, you're not doing something like that. It just seems to me like your water happens to be blue and all this stuff happens to be like gray, you know. So I think you need to think about your color scheme and decide like what colors you want to accentuate or not, you know, or like if you want this to be like kind of a naturalistic thing or not, you know. So I would just like, you know, see like, see one of these, right? And then so like wherever I see this stuff, I see like a very unified color palette, meaning that like like there isn't one thing that's like super saturated and everything else isn't. Like in this case here, like this blue is really saturated, but then you have these like nice like saturated reds in here, and I know that's like the only place where you have those, but like those are like the accents that make a piece. So I feel like you have that opportunity. Here it's like everything is this level, this kind of like nice green, and these warms here, and like the sky, like it all kind of works together. There's not one piece that feels out of place. And I just feel like you can do a little bit more with the blue and maybe even the reds to like get two accents in there and have them be like a powerful like thing in your scene, something to draw the eye forward, instead of like having them sit back like this. But yeah, no, that's good. Keep going. I'm definitely interested in how you kind of continue this one. These shots here, I think they're all cool. So this one, are you using the like Unreal Tone Mapper to essentially make things really blue? I know like some people were like putting like things in there, and then you can have like a different, it was like a box, I can't remember the name now, but like essentially when you went under, you get like a different tone and you can adjust that. But it's cool. I like it a lot, actually. I think some things you can do to kind of help yourself is, I think these rays are a little too sharp. If you look at your reference, many of them are like softer. And I think that works underwater because you're kind of expecting softness and atmosphere. So I think it'll work nicely with like just a little bit of softness in there. And then the other thing I think you might need is like a little bit of heat on the top, meaning like the light can be a little bit brighter near the top. Right now it seems very even, so when I see this, I think that we're really deep in the water. I don't know, somehow it just feels like you're not seeing any like changing in the light here, but these pieces here are really bright, and I think that maybe that's just due to them having like a different shader. Like these are like light shaders, whereas everything else is dark. So I would consider like darkening up the top of the frame, and it'd be actually really easy to test. So if we took this one here and I just added like a really soft oops. Everything is like a different format, so so just like a little bit of heat on the top of the frame can sort of like make it seem like that light's coming down, and maybe that's too much, but you just want to feel a little bit, because one of the things I'm seeing like in some of these shots of yours is like a clear ramp of like brightness coming from somewhere. If you see this, there's like this like really beautiful ramp. I know you're looking up at the sun in this one, or some light behind here, but it just makes it feel more connected. So even here, like you're feeling a little bit, so it's like brighter up here than it is down here. Here you're feeling like, you just need to like make that connection between like what's lighting, and then that light's like passing through like an actual volume, which is like the water, and it's going to be getting softer very quickly, so I would say for this one, see about softening some of these rays, especially like this artificial end here, I would just soften it like as much as I can, whereas until I still get some detail in there. And you never want to see like edges like this unless it's very clearly defined that your light is coming through like a shaft. But even then, like, it should be really soft. Yeah, and then maybe like a little heat on top on some of these shots, just because I think the light's kind of dying quickly. Not quickly, but it's dying at least somewhat, and it should be like a little visible. But yeah, really nice work. I think everything you showed is good. And I think sometimes what you get from a reference is like the mood. You're just like, oh, I see it's blue, and I see it's like heavily atmosphered. Sometimes it's like weird things that make that shot work. Like in this one, going back, it's like the contrast between like this blue and like these like nice reds here. It's like that play. And I think sometimes we need to be like a little bit more playful with our work and less like rigid about here's the sun and here's this and here's how it's working. Because like you're trying to make art, and I think that's the fun part. Is like just playing with colors. So give it a try and see how it looks. Okay, so moving on. Paul did this, and yeah, I think this is I think this is really nice, Paul. You did some cool stuff. I feel like I'm really focusing on the characters here. It's really coming through for me, that like they're just working in their kitchen, and I feel like I can finally feel like it's not so much that like I couldn't tell that it was them, and I know that like in motion they're very visible because they're moving around, but it's like when you look at a thumbnail, or when you look at something when you squint or something like that, it's like, what's that initial read that you get? And I think that that's important to keep in mind. Like sometimes you can just watch a shot over and over again and really understand what's happening, but it's that like initial read that's going to help like all of you, like what do I get right away, so yeah, I think this is like really working now, and I kind of feel like where the lighting's coming from now. Like moving forward on this shot, now that we have like that back kind of handled, yeah, I think like some of these, like this rim might be just a tad too bright. I'm not sure. I almost feel like it's like maybe you're grabbing this outside and you're changing it, and that's what's causing it. Like it just feels like a comp mistake or something like that, like because it's all the way around on his face. But it could be a light too. It could be like whatever rim you have there, but I'm not seeing it like on this side of his body. Sorry, like on his pants or anything like that. It's just where the window is. If that's the case, I think you either need to find like a different way to do that, or like try like a softer road or something like that. Long time like VFX compers probably won't like me saying a road, but sometimes it works to just clean up like an edge when you're getting like strange results from something you're doing in depth behind the character. Yeah, so that's like something that stood out to me as like maybe a mistake. and then I think like the rest of it is kind of fitting into your reference, like that, like, warm look. The only other thing, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what else I could say. I mean, I think like you're hitting your prompt here. Uh, I would check your texture here, because it looks like you're losing your reds are super saturated, like here. Like you see the value here is like 1 and then nearly 0 0, and then same thing here, 1 0 0 pretty much. It looks to me like you're losing detail. Um, like here I can see some sort of detail in here, but like here in the center it all goes away where that sun is hitting. So I think what's happening, or the not sun but your key, and I think what's happening is it's hitting it, both lights are kind of, the light is warm and your texture is like red, and then like it just like makes your reds like explode in like intensity. So always be careful when you have really saturated colors. And I think what you might need to do to fix this is it could be a comp thing too. Maybe you're pushing your saturation too high or something. I'm not sure how you're doing this, but the other thing you can do, I was going to say, is like just make a new like key just for the shirt, and then like make it a little less red, and see if that helps. Just like it looks like a technical mistake. So if like this shot was going to go in your reel or something, you don't want to have it like be technically like have it be an issue or something like that. But yeah, Paul, if you're around, like contact me. I'd love to see like what else you were planning with this shot. Like I don't like to give notes like just willy-nilly, like for no reason, because I feel like this is reading to me. But if you were hoping for something different, or if this was like your thought process, like if this was where it was looking good, to me I think it's good, other than these like technical issues. I'd love to see the shot rendered if you have, because sometimes it'll reveal something different that we're missing. But yeah, I think it's reading right now. It's kind of nice. I think that since one thought I had is that since you changed this like back atmosphere to be like cooler, I wonder if like the sky needs to be a little cooler instead. If you change this color to like a light blue, maybe it won't fit in your timeline or whatever, or like maybe it needs to just be white or something, or like a lightly bluish white or something like that. Maybe it'll fit better behind the character there. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to give you like notes when I think it's like reading, and like sometimes you can just add stuff to a shot and make it worse. So if I was doing this shot and I was gonna like continue, I might think about maybe throwing some fog like from the top, like hitting like that, whatever light's hitting them. It can act as like a focal point, and like one that might like get rid of some of these like mids that you're seeing. But again, like I'm not sure. I saw some of your reference. I think this is like pretty close to that, and I'm not sure how much of that you want. But I would, like, if it was me, I would test a little bit of like foreground fog coming from this light that's hitting him so harshly from the left side. So whatever like window that is, you could have like a really soft spot there. But yeah, I think you did a good job, Paul, and you made a lot of changes on this in a short time, so cool. But yeah, contact me, Paul, if you like have any thoughts, or like let me know what's happening with the shirt, and Yeah, I'd love to see like the shot rendered if you have it, even on like 5s or 10s. If you skip every until every 10th frame or something like that, that would be like really a good test to see if it's like reading as you play it. So good work, man. So this is we've seen this a few times now. I'm just gonna play it real quick. This is the newest one, version 06. Ugh. Yeah, that's nice. I like this a lot. I think he did a lot of like really nice changes. It's such a like I did see like a technical issue right here. It looks like you still have like some kind of like roto that's darkening him or something right behind that wall. But other than that, I mean, like I think like everything you've done, like adding that like contact shadow here has really sat this down for me. The wall looks better. It doesn't look like it's there was some like technical thing going on with the brightness there. You see like it just all feels so nice. Like the light is only casting so far. It's casting this like pool of light. I think the character fits in the scene better. Like you can read that the light's hitting him from the screen right side, and it's like darker on this side. I like the way that light's coming around the corner, and I like what's happening with the door here. Like it feels a little bit more natural to me that's happening. So I think you softened it enough that it doesn't feel so CG. Things you might still have to work on. Honestly, it's like if you fix this technical issue, and maybe you see how here like this like shadow line hits him. That's like, to me, that's too sharp. It feels like a roto. That's how sharp it is. So I would soften that one. And then when he's running away, I think what you can do is like you read his shirt, but you're not reading like that facial expression. So I would, I think you did good darkening this side and keeping it a little filled in. I would maybe brighten the right side of his face just the tiniest bit, maybe 10%. And I think it will, if I go, so I'm going to go up one stop, I think like, or half a stop maybe. I think that would be enough. But just something so that like his shirt is so bright, and I think his face could go just a little bit brighter. It'll help the read as he's exiting the frame. But everything else you did, yeah, I think it's really nice. There's some like other strange, this is like a motion blur over like a low level light thing going, but it flashes, so I would just like fix that in comp or something if you can't get it in render. But I know you probably know most of this stuff, so, but I think it's working really nicely now. The one other thing I was going to say that I was going to bring up is this fog here. This is just for your own, I don't think you would notice like watching this shot one time, but for your own like knowledge and growth, I feel like the fog is really even. Like from here to here, it's the same. And I think it should be, even the fog that you have here is very similar. Take this fog as like a reference. It starts off bright and then it quickly softens and kind of dies out, I think that's what you need, and that's what you're missing like here, and it feels like really artificial, and it acts to like really flatten your building, like the light, every value is the same. So see about maybe like getting a little bit of ramp here. And again, I don't think anybody watching this one time will feel it or understand, what's happening there, but um, for your own growth, I think it's something to keep in mind. And if you have the time to fix it here, I would. Otherwise, like, focus on some of the technical issues, like that like weird shadowing behind here, and that like harsh line on him here, and then maybe like uh, maybe the brightness of his face going up a tad will help like the read. So yeah, I mean, I think this shot has come a long way, and if it's part of a bigger project and you guys are on a deadline or whatever, I think it's, outside of those like technical mishaps, I think it's good. So nice work, and you've been contacting me, uh, here and there to get some like tips on stuff, and yeah, it's like great. I'm glad you're doing that. Um, if you have any other questions, please contact me again. And that's it. I think we actually got through everyone inside the hour today.